The thing that inspired me to write The Mountaintop was actually a story that my mom told me when I was 10 years old. So basically, my mom grew up around the corner from the Lorraine Motel. And, you know, in 1968, she was 15 years old at the time. And she heard that Dr. King was coming to lead the sanitation workers strike. And she was just like, I have to hear this man speak. I've never been in the room with him. I've always seen him on TV, you know, being the leader of the black people. Like, I must, you know, march with him. So she actually ended up participating in one of the marches, and that was actually a march that descended into chaos. A guy who lived one street over from her, Larry Payne, 16 years old at the time, he ended up being killed by police. They said he was stealing a TV, but people in the neighborhood knew that that's not what happened. So, you know, there was just this like this ominous feeling that to be a part of the civil rights movement and to, you know, be an active participant of change and social justice, and being a young black person was actually a very dangerous thing. So when he came back, he wanted to do the march again and prove that, you know, these marches can be nonviolent. But my mom asked her mom, can I go and hear Dr. King speak? He was scheduled to speak at the Mason Temple that night, April 3rd, 1968. And, you know, Big Mama was like, you better sit your butt down. You know you ain't going nowhere because you know it's dangerous. People are out to get that man. And so my mother decided to, you know, heed her mother's advice, and she did not go. And that became one of the greatest regrets of her life, because the next day, as we all know, he was assassinated. And so my mother told me this story over and over and over again. It really imprinted itself on my mind, on my heart. The fact that people knew that a bullet was out for him. And so as I grew older, I began to really think about, well, he must have known, and really try to put myself in his kind of mental state at the time. And so when I really started concentrating on Mountaintop, there was this man named Barack Obama who was thinking about running for the presidency. And so it just made me look back over those 40 years and think about how much had changed from his assassination, knowing that, you know, for the black community, there had been so much progress, so much change, but also knowing that there's so much work to do, so much injustice that as a community that we were still dealing with. And so that story that my mother had told me over and over and over again morphed into this play called Mountaintop. I wanted to look at a king who was human, not lionized, not sanitized. I think that's the problem with our crystallization of King in the history books. We have put him on a pedestal, and you know, you go into my grandmother's house and there's two pictures on the wall. It's King and it's Jesus, and that's what we think of him. But for me, it was just really important to pull him down off of that pedestal, examine him, look at all the cracks and crevices that I know he as a human and also as a leader had. But what's very interesting about the play is I also wanted to have him battling a protagonist / antagonist that was equal to him, but also antithetical to him. And so I created this maid named Kamei, who was named after my mother. So it was this very, you know, weird way to put my mother in the room with him when she didn't get that opportunity in 1968. Yes, my mother did lionize him, but there's this line in the play, Negro talk strike faster than lightning. We all knew that he liked to flirt. We all knew that he smoked, because most folks did back then. Even though he was this preacher man, even though he was this leader of the civil rights movement, the head of this amazing body, people, the folks, you know, the black people, particularly in Memphis, really knew that he was just a regular person. And so even when she was telling me this story, there was always this understanding of the greatness and complexity of him, which I don't think other people ever, were privy to, maybe because of the actual physical proximity that my mother had to, having grown up in Memphis, grew up around the corner from the Lorraine Motel. So she always kind of had placed him on the ground, but obviously gave him so much respect because of all the accomplishments that he was able to achieve in his lifetime, in his very short lifetime. She's pretty amazing, really tough, meaning, and not tough in a kind of like, I don't know, mean way. Just, I think about everything that she has survived, and she grew up poor. She used to pick cotton. She was 11 years old. She would go across the bridge to Arkansas and pick cotton for her school clothes. And people think, wait a minute, yeah, like my mom is 65 and she used to pick cotton because that was an industry that just mutated. And it was like working at McDonald's, when she was growing up. And so you think about this woman bent over in the cotton fields, and all of a sudden, she's very hardworking. She has climbed up out of, abject poverty and raised 4 girls, and living in what I call her mansion in Mississippi. There's Southern rich and then there's Northern rich. And I'm like, you look Southern rich, mama. You got the big house. You got an upstairs and downstairs. You got a massive bedroom. You got a jacuzzi. Just these hallmarks of the American dream she has been able to build for herself just because she's such a hard worker. And I think obviously, that's where I get it from. The fact that I always remember is like, your mom used to pick cotton and now you sit at a desk and type. So you got you better type, girl. You are this amazing symbol of what people can do when they have this dream, this American dream, and they go for it and they actually work hard and they achieve it. So she's really funny. I mean, when I go home, I feel like I should just have a recorder on. Like, I feel like, Kamei talks the way that she does, like really blunt and all sassy and in curly cues and with wit, because that's, definitely my mom's personality. Always approaches things with a smile and doesn't let anything hold her back or keep her down. She's just very inspiring in that regard. And she's like the most amazing storyteller. She's a way better storyteller than me. Way better. I mean, we went to, why am I laughing? We went to a funeral, and she had to speak and she was late, as usual. And she had on her mink, her little black mink. Very stylish lady. And, it was like, it's time for her to, go up and do her testimony. And she just throws off her mink. She goes up and no notes and just like for 20 minutes, like talks and tells the most beautiful story. I'm like, wow, you would have been the president if you had been given, the foundation that you deserved. But because of our history and because of the point in history in which she was born, wasn't given the path to that opportunity. But it's just really, amazing to see all the talent and just the amazingness that she is. And I was kind of really struck by the fact that she could like sit up there and hold a crowd for like 20 minutes, like extemporaneously. I'm like, I can't do that. I can't do that. I feel like the work in pulling King off of the pedestal came from a place of naivete, meaning I wrote the play thinking that it was never going to be produced. Ain't nobody doing this play. I got King running around with stinky feet. He peeing at the top of the show. Ain't nobody seeing this. But I think in doing that work, which, was me being open to the humanity of an icon, the fact that I never wrote with this feeling of someone looking over my shoulder, like I never felt like I owed anything to the black community or white folks or black men. I just felt like what I owed people to tell the truth and to explore the truth, and also to use a lie and to use fiction to show a deeper emotional truth. That to me was the first thing, and also just, blinders on. Ain't nobody gonna do this play. So that was just, I wouldn't even say that was work. It was more thinking about it as play.
Yeah.
Versus thinking I have to tackle all of these assumptions and obstacles that people are going to impose upon me because I am trying to tackle this big subject. And you know, I ran into some obstacles. You know, people were like, "We're not doing this play." I had to be with the King family, and I got my little, you know, finger wagging. Don't be trying to do that to my daddy. And I understood. I wouldn't want anyone to, you know, take my daddy off of a pedestal. That's where he was. I mean, they have a huge statue on the mall, on the National Mall of him. Like, why would some, you know, unknown playwright from Memphis, Tennessee think, how dare she try to take my daddy down? But I just felt like we as a people, it's very challenging to think that you always have to be perfect. It's very challenging to always have to cover your flaws and also always have to cover your humanity. And I think you actually do a disservice to a community if you demand their perfection. You actually take their humanity away if you don't allow them to make mistakes and allow them to be living and breathing people. And so for me, that was the ultimate goal of the play. And for me, the play sometimes isn't even really about King. It's about the person sitting in the audience knowing that they too can be an extraordinary, ordinary person. That is attainable to them, for their entire community, for everybody. What's so interesting about this play is that it's always been a play in progress. The play never ends. I don't know if I should do my spoiler alert. I'll hold it.
Like real big
Spoiler alert. But yes, it's a play that's always in progress. And I feel like all plays are in progress because you need the audience. There needs to be an exchange of understanding the story and the actors giving the story to you. So every time a play is performed, it's performed differently every night. And in this play, because of how it ends, you know, the audience is just as much of a character as the two people on stage, as the Maid Kame and as, you know, the civil rights movement leader, Dr. King. And so if you see this leader of this movement, this social justice visionary mover and shaker on stage, and his energy is transmitted into the audience, and the audience ends up walking away from the play thinking that they too can be king, they too can change the world. To me, that's the reason why I come back to the play and try to make it, and wanted to make it a little bit more current, and looking at all the things that have happened since 2009 when the play was first produced in London and subsequently in 2011 on Broadway. The fact that, yes, Obama, you know, was elected president. Oh my gosh, yay! People thought we were moving into this post-racial society, right? And what has revealed is that people are even more racist today than they was in 1968. It's crazy. So making people understand that this path to social justice, to the promised land, is very incremental. The work it appears to be glacial almost. Take, you know, one step forward, 50 steps back some days, it feels like. You know, the fact that Trayvon Martin was killed by George Zimmerman, George Zimmerman gets off, you know, Michael Brown, Ferguson, the Black Lives Matter movement, like all those things have created this boiling pot that, to me, has only revealed the amount of damage that America has encountered by not really dealing with these, it seems like, immovable structures of injustice in our society. And I just feel like right now we are living in a moment where a lot of people are becoming a little bit more woke to it. I think that has a lot to do with social media, the amplification of the message, the amplification of just stories and narratives, and the fact that, you know, a lot of Black people have been telling people, you know, these things happened to me. The police treated me this way. That woman treated me that way, and like, oh, I don't believe it because, you know, I didn't experience it, so it doesn't exist. But now that we have Facebook and Instagram and, you know, just all these mediums, people are like, no, this is my narrative, this is my story, this is my play. And to kind of feed off of, you know, this moment of everybody being able to have a voice, and to kind of amplify that through the world of this play was just very important to me. And so I felt like it was just very imperative to kind of come back and revisit the fact that we are a country that is constantly in progress, and that's just what it is. And I don't know if we'll ever make it to this quote unquote promised land, and maybe that's the point, the fact that it's all about the journey and it's all about the trying, and maybe I just have to be satisfied with trying for equality and justice for all, even though I'm like, damn, sometimes I just want a carrot, man. And I think you have to be hopeful. Otherwise, why are you going to get up in the morning? I feel that way when I write plays. Like, will someone produce this? I hope so. And you continue writing, and you continue marching, and you continue protesting, because you know that there's a generation coming behind you. I mean, you know, we're both mothers, and knowing that what we actually do has this huge impact on these little people who have no power in the world yet. And that's really, I think, our responsibility. We just have to make it a little bit better, and we're not going to fix everything all the time, but we can do as much as we can. And I think that's really another point of the play, the fact that it's like, no, you're human. You have to go on. You have to go to heaven, or, you know, that promised land up in the sky. But it's time for you to pass on that baton, and whether it be your children or, you know, someone behind you, someone next in line, you know, that's just the work that you constantly have to do every day. I think Hillary Clinton had like a very intense, I wouldn't say altercation, meeting with a lot of the Black Lives Matter movement leaders. And she said something very interesting. She was like, I don't think that you can change people's hearts. I think you can change policy, and then hopefully people follow the policy. But we all know that people don't follow the policy changes. There have been laws that have been, you know, on the books, and people ignore them. You know, there was the Brown versus Board of Education thing, and, you know, there's this city called Cleveland, Mississippi, and, you know, the federal government just ordered them to desegregate in 2016. So we know that it takes a long time for society to step into its power. But that's what the arts can do. That's what theater can do. It can change people's hearts. It can, you know, create these images and create these moments where people see other people on stage who are not like them, and therefore they leave the theater, or they leave, you know, their living room having watched a TV show, whatever, just feeling like, oh, that person is different, but they're just like me. And that is, for me, the work that needs to be done in our society, this work of empathy creation. Because if you don't change the heart, like, how can we live next to each other? How can we work together? How can we move forward as a country? And it made me realize that maybe artists are the only ones who can do the work that our president and these politicians and these businessmen can't do. Yeah, they can, you know, provide the economic structure and maybe make it a little bit more equal, and lawmakers can do certain things, but we have to be able to see each other as equals. And how can we do that if we don't see each other as human beings? How do we do that if we don't have stories and have a common space together and be in the room with each other and breathe the same air? And that's what theater can do, I feel like.